Hi guys. Uh, I mean, it's been over a week since I did this, so hold on. Let me get the intro. Good morning, local warriors. This is Dana Zulik, and welcome to Local Wars. So it's been over a week since I did a podcast, whatever you want to call it, a live stream. Um, yeah, a lot's gone on, and I was thinking of a way I can talk about some of the next issues. I had some records I was trying to get a hold of before this show we're going to do today. So, today we're going to be talking about who financially benefits from all of this corruption, right? Because human nature isn't just to do things willy nilly for no reason, right? There's usually something behind it that somebody's benefiting from, and that benefit often comes from a number of things. Money is a very big thing. And in my case, I believe that money is involved. I also believe that um, personal egos get in the way. And then also this ability to, like, this desire by officials in local government to save face, right? So they don't want to be exposed because oftentimes it starts very small corruption. It starts very subtle, doesn't seem like a big deal. And even the people participating in it may think, well, uh, in the end, what I'm doing is good, right? So that's what we're going to go over. That's just kind of a preview to what we're going to talk about today. Um, there was a few things I was going to share. Let's see. Today is my son's 14th birthday. Woo woo. My baby boy, who's not such a baby, he's pretty tall. He's 14, and so happy birthday to him. And Thanksgiving's coming up. My whole family's coming in from out of town. I get to spend time with my three sisters. I think it's been a couple of decades since we've done that. So a lot of catching up to do, and I'm really looking forward to that too. Going into the fall, um, here in Wisconsin, especially, we have a lot less exposure to sun and sunlight and vitamin D. So I just encourage anybody who might be feeling a little more depressed or a little down. One thing to talk to your doctor about, or I think you can even buy them on Amazon. You can get like a UV light, and that really helps with um, the lack of sun that we get here in the north. So I always like to give a little bit of tips that help me because, hey, maybe someone doesn't know, right? And I sometimes I'll just go to like Planet Fitness and use the tanning booth. I always tell my friends, "Hey, I have my own dance video when I'm in there." 'Cause they play all this fun music and, like, the wind gets going, and I feel like I'm, like, in my own dance video. But if you're not, ADHD like me, then maybe you'll just stand still and enjoy it. But I recommend dancing. Dancing is always recommended. I wanna remind everybody that we have the crisis line right there, 988. Um, Hey guys, it's a phenomenal resource. I think a lot of people think that you have to be suicidal or you have to be like, you know, ready to jump off a bridge or something, and that is not the case. You can just be feeling overwhelmed. You can feel unsettled. That's what they're there for. All they do is come up with a safety plan. They talk to you. They help you work through your feelings and kind of reset that nervous system so that you can feel better. So If you're ever feeling overwhelmed or you have a family member or a friend that is overwhelmed, or even, I've even ran into people out just in my daily life, and you get to talking in waiting rooms or whatever, and I mentioned it to them, "Hey, if you're going through a hard time, give 988 a call. That's what they're there for." Okay? So, that's my little spiel. So, this morning, I had caramel brulee from Starbucks. So, anybody who's here in the chat, I want you to throw in your favorite holiday drink. And I would say from Starbucks, but I know, not everybody's a fan of Starbucks, but that's okay. Um, just put what you're drinking this morning. Maybe it's an energy drink, maybe it's water. I personally like caramel brulee. And to the replay crew, remember to hit that subscribe button. And if you click the bell for notifications, hopefully YouTube will remind you when we're about to go live. And so you won't miss any live streams. So, um, one more fun little story for the intro. I went to the dentist a couple weeks ago and I was showing them my YouTube channel and they were super impressed that I had over 100 subscribers. I always keep it to ice water. Ice water is the best and it's so good for your nervous system. Um, Another trick, guys, I've learned is like ice. Oh, sorry, I should share this. Ice water. Ooh, love the nails. Love the nails, MCL. I I'm feeling it. I see you. But ice is another really good thing. Just putting it on your head. Sometimes, if you are feeling a little overwhelmed, a cool shower, that helps too. But anyways, ice water's yummy, yummy. Okay, so today's episode isn't going to be, um, it's not my most favorite topic because I am not a numbers crunchers girl. Okay, so I'm going to rely on my chat and the replay crew to kind of help me keep track of the tally because one of the biggest questions I get is let's see the receipts of how much Richfield has spent on the Scenic Pit case. Luckily, I have the open records from the 2014 through the 2017 time period, and that covers from the time we had an accepted offer to purchase the property through when we won at the Court of Appeals. Um, since that time, our village attorney, John Macy, his firm has changed names. It used to be like a bunch of their last names, like Aaron's, Moulter, Macy, Riffle. I can't remember them all. So that's what you'll see in these statements today. And what's interesting is they line item everything. So, I'm assuming there's a retainer, but then they like line item each and everything. So I don't know if it goes against the retainer or if it's in addition to the retainer for certain things, but we're going to go over that. But first, uh, I have I think it's about 15 minutes. I found this really cool audio of Erica Brewer in the town of Eagle. And it's a show called, let me see what it's called here, Our American Stories. So I will put a link uh, if Courtney's listening to this or my friend Mike, just remind me later, hey, did you put that link in the description? Because I want to put a link to it so everybody can see it. But yeah, it's ouramericanstories.com and I can share it right now. Here we go. Okay, here we go. So this is Erica Brewer. Okay, she lives in the town of Eagle. And like me, she spoke up against her local government. Okay. And oh, I appreciate you so much. Thank you, Mike. She's got my back. She gave me a check mark. Okay. So it says she spoke out in defense of her neighbor and was fined $20,000 for it. Okay. So, like me, she wasn't okay with what the local government was doing. And in her case, it started off with the neighbor. So she wasn't even calling them out on what they were doing to her initially. It was about a horse farm. Well, I will let her tell the story better than me and these people from Our American Stories. I did reach out to them. I would love them to cover our story, so I'll see if we get a call back. And I'm new to YouTube, so I hope this isn't like violating any um, copyright or anything like that. I don't think it's going to, but I think it's important enough, and I would like to share it. And I will post their link. I'm giving them credit. So here we go. Let's just listen.
And we return to Our American Stories. And now it's time for another Rule of Law story, which is a part of our Rule of Law series, where we showcase what happens in the absence and the presence of the rule of law in our lives. Here's our own Monty Montgomery with today's story.
48 minutes out of Milwaukee, down Interstate 43, off Exit 43, is the town of Eagle, Wisconsin. Population 2,063. It's a sleepy rural bedroom community surrounded by farms and fields. The kind of place you'd expect to see farm stands selling fresh produce. Farm stands like Erica Brewer and her husband Zach's.
Okay, so real quick, I just want to remind everybody listening, there's a couple of players that work in the town of Eagle that are the same as the village of Richfield. In particular, John Macy's firm, which is Municipal Law and Litigation Group, and Tim Schwecke. So let's just keep listening.
We called it Mom Mallory's Farm Fresh Stand. So we have this figure in our minds of Mom Mallory, who's a pioneer woman who, settled the land with her family, and she takes care of her community and grows good, nutritious food. The whole philosophy behind having this stand essentially was, it's like you're coming to your grandmother's cupboard. The farm stand was a great way to connect and reach to our community. I came to enjoy the people who would stop at our stand. You get to know these people and the camaraderie that comes from that, and see their babies grow as they're in the car seat, as they're driving by to pick up food. And to not have it this year, it's sad.
But what happened between this year and last that made her farm stand go away?
Being a part of a small community, you want to support each other. So when you hear about somebody in your community wanting to launch a business, it's really something where we all do surround each other and lift each other up and try and rally. It's a lifeblood for us out here. We had a neighbor who was starting a horse boarding facility. So they had a very large barn. They wanted to capitalize on that space and do not just horse boarding, but also host classes and train the community or people coming into the community how to work with horses and get the youth involved with an agricultural experience. And the town board was really going hard against this particular family, criticizing them for their manure management plan, which was actually a composted pile of dirt. That they then would use in their own gardens. They were upset if there would be too many horse trailers coming through or too many people coming in to attend some of these classes. And these classes were maybe structured for 6 children. So we spoke out our feelings of what we thought and how this would be a benefit. And then we started getting more engaged in watching how they posted meeting minutes or their governmental process compared to what the state standards were or what was listed in the ordinances for the town itself. And we noticed discrepancies. They weren't even following their own standards that they had set.
And I say this all of the time. They don't follow the standards that they set. And we're going to see that today when we go over some of the statements to our village attorney and I'll show you how he's the only one that benefits from all of this litigation and crazy, attacking people, right? And one of the cases that I talked about quite that I want to talk about. We're going to do a whole episode on. I'm trying to get a hold of my good friend and see if he's willing to come on air. And remember, a lot of times, guys, people aren't willing to be like Erica Brewer or me. And like the only thing that sets us apart from you guys is the willingness to speak up and speak out. And it's hard and it's understandable. I understand. But hopefully this buddy of mine will be willing to come on and share his story because, their family owns a property in downtown Richfield where the feed mill used to be. And when it was built, it was zoned mixed business use. And it was always assessed on the taxes as mixed business use. So it was business residential, which is very common for properties right along that strip. Well, at some point, the village of Richfield decides that this property is zoned M3. I can't think of a better example of spot zoning because it's the only M3 zoned property, at least back then. I don't know if they've made any changes, but it was the only M3 in the whole entire village. And it allows for hazardous material processing. It allows for manufacturing of explosives. And it's located right next to the fire department, a park. It's in a neighborhood next to businesses. So I totally identify with what Erica Brewer is saying here. Sometimes, they don't even understand their own ordinances or how the zoning is applying or what it means. Some good old boys get together, they decide that they don't like it. And that's not the standard, right? It's not whether or not you like it. It's whether or not that person, has a civil right to do it. Back to what we're doing. Gina, why do you gotta talk all the time? Because that's me. That's me.
We would publicly call them out about that. We felt like we had to take a stand. But for us, taking that stand meant that then the focus turned on us.
And soon enough, town officials started showing up on her property.
Yep.
Here's Erica's lawyer, Kirby West, of the Institute for Justice, with what happened next.
So after she had, posted on social media and spoken up on town board meetings, they were informed that the town had received an anonymous complaint that they were in violation of a variety of ordinances in Eagle. Soon after, the board sent somebody to investigate their property, and they got a laundry list of violations. They said that their grass was too long, they had too many structures on their property, they had too many farm animals.
Illegally running family businesses from our property, having too many cars come to our property. There was a complaint of our building being too close to the property line.
They had flower boxes that were unpermitted. They had an unlicensed farm stand where they were selling produce.
When I heard that, guys, I'm like, flower boxes. But this should terrify all of us. What? Like, I know there's people out there, there's people that get, like the Karen Reed case right now, which I am going live today to discuss. But, there's people out there that have really bad things, right? Like, she's trying to have, like, the local government is trying to pin murder on her, pin it on the girl. But the reality is, like, this happens even when it's not murder involved. This is just us trying to live our everyday lives, right? And no government should ever think that they have enough power to all of a sudden put a microscope on somebody because they speak up against what they're doing. That's kindergarten crap, guys. Like, I, for one, just want people to run for the board that are grown-ups. Well, okay, I take that back. I want to run for the village board, and I'm not always a grown-up. But when it comes to stuff like this, I am definitely a grown-up. Because I think empathy is a huge thing that someone needs to possess when they're in government. You get a little bit of that little power, right? You get power. And the next thing you know, you're just going crazy and you're writing citations for not having permits for your flower boxes. Come on. Wow. This could happen to anybody. Just unbelievable.
And just like everything you can imagine.
Our farm stand wasn't even at the roadside. It was closer to our home where we had a parking spot available. So we weren't putting people in a safety issue of trying to get out of their vehicle on a road to obtain food. And it wasn't even a full structure. It was 2 ply boards attached to posts in concrete. And the town viewed that as a structure. And that meant we had too many structures on our property. So we would have to apply for a variance fee and hope that the board would approve for the variance for us to have a temporary farm stand for the vegetable season in front of our house. And if we didn't remove that or we continued with them, they would keep sending the planning and zoning administrator out to our property or the building inspector and then reassess those fees back to us. And any day that we were in violation, they would continue to stack up fees on us. So it came to a point where, with the supposed violations that the town was claiming against us, they were going to take us to court for $20,000 unless we came into compliance, met all their needs, signed a form agreeing to pay fees, which they did not disclose to us, or else be taken to court for $20,000.
Wow.
And so where they
Wow.
could, they came into compliance. They got rid of their farm stand. They had a greenhouse that the town had said there was too many structures on their property, so they got rid of the greenhouse. They mowed the lawn where it was overgrown. But it wasn't enough for the town board.
Nope.
They kept coming back and saying, no, there are
Because
more
it's not about
violations.
that.
You need to actually tear down their barn, which they said was
It's
unpermitted.
ego.
They didn't give evidence that there weren't permits for the barn. The barn was built before Erica and Zach were there, but they told Erica and Zach that they had to provide the building permits and be able to prove that the barn was in fact permitted.
And the fees, it's profit motivation. These town attorney, the building inspector, and the planning and zoning administrator all charge the town an hourly rate. So they are set up with the best racket of finding the problems, making the problems, and then making the person that they are going after pay not only for the problem to resolve the problem, but pay for the cost of them investigating the problem.
I mean, guys, did you hear what she just said? I can't highlight that enough. Like, oh, MCL. I thought you were Mike the whole time. It wasn't. It was Courtney. You're so funny. But yeah, did you hear what she said? Like, there's every reason for these people because they're billing hourly. So as long as they keep, like, why wouldn't they keep finding somebody in trouble? They're getting paid more. And here's the one excuse that I always hated, and I'm sure if we were to talk to Erica Brewer, we would hear similar stories. I can't put words in her mouth, but her and I have talked in the past a couple of years ago, but I'm sure you're going to hear the same thing. Well, if you weren't violating them, then we wouldn't have the right to give you a citation. But that's not good enough, guys. That should not be acceptable. That should not be the acceptable standard for anybody in communities where the only time it gets enforced is if you end up in some sort of political debate or you hurt someone's feelings. No, the standard is that we're all to be treated equally, right? If Erica Brewer is going to get fined for having flower boxes, then everybody with flower boxes should be fined as well. Can't stress it enough. There's a reason for these people to create conflicts in communities. And you know who pays the price? You, the taxpayer. The taxpayer, all of us taxpayers, anywhere that this law firm is representing, any municipality they represent. It's us, the taxpayer, that's making these guys wealthy. And they're doing it by, I'm not in the closed sessions. I don't know if they're giving proper advice or not. But it would seem that there is a motive, in my opinion, based on my experiences, there is a motive for them to not give proper advice. And I go back to this all the time with my own case in Scenic Pit versus Village of Richfield. Our case reaffirmed well-settled case law. And I'll say it every episode if I have to. It's well settled case law, DeRosso versus City of Oak Creek. Our case wasn't groundbreaking. All it did was take a controversy that was settled 20 years ago and resettle it. Oh man, it's been almost 30 years now. Woo. But that's all it did, is it resettled it. Reaffirmed it, sorry, not resettled, but you know what I mean. You know, basically it got to the point where people are like, no, this has already been decided. And I just wonder if John Macy, in those closed sessions, told the village board, guys, this is well settled case law. There's a very, very low chance that you're going to win. And if they had that information, you would think a responsible board member wouldn't have voted to continue this case at the cost of taxpayers.
And all the billing.
Let's take a step back for a second, though. Erica mentioned earlier that the town came after her, approved of these fines and fees, and kept coming back for more because she had taken them to task in defense of her neighbor. That seems like a First Amendment violation. A pretty hefty claim. But is there any truth to it?
In cases like this, it's often difficult to prove that that's the case. It's, easy to say, well, nothing happened until I said something about the government, and then this happened to me, so it seems like, but it can be hard to really prove that that's what happened. But here, there's actually kind of a smoking gun. So one of the board members actually sent Erica an email.
Through the conversation of the email, I had implored this individual, even though you're only one voice, your one voice stands through this record that is being created. She, I feel, maybe went defensive with that. And her reply back was, well, you have pissed everybody off on the board and they are against you. They don't like you and they voted against you with emotion. So I actually have an email from the town board member saying that the conduct of the town board was that they didn't like me, so they were going to vote against me.
Yep. Wow.
I really feel like our town board did not want to have somebody questioning the way things have always been. This attitude and mentality of, well, this is the way it's always been, does not create an atmosphere of growth, of expansion in a positive way for a community where younger generations can speak their voice, input to the community, and share some of their experiences as well. I think when it's a community and people are elected in, they have to be open to how they're serving that community and the population that's there. And so when someone is challenging that or questioning that, I just think it really brought in this irritation, and it was like, well, we've got to silence her and make this stop.
Yeah.
What the town is doing is illegal because it's violating our amendment rights.
Yes.
To go after somebody who's speaking out against the government, that's First Amendment rights. That's pretty basic.
Terrible.
What happened to Erica and Zach was unconstitutional. This enforcement action was pursued against them in retaliation for protected speech. If the First Amendment protects anything, it certainly protects your right to speak critical of the government. That is core protected First Amendment expression. And when a government enforces ordinance violations or really takes any kind of adverse action against you as a direct result because of things that you said about the government, that violates the First Amendment.
Yes. With that, they fired back as the town of Eagle. They claim they're not violating my First Amendment rights because I'm still speaking. That statement in a court document,
it didn't work. You didn't shut up, Erica.
My own local government says, oh yeah, no, there's not a problem because she's still talking. What if there was a problem? Does that mean you would silence me somehow?
Right.
That seems so ominous and threatening and just something out of a historical movie in my mind.
Yeah, it's shocking. It's absolutely
Possible
shocking. I
mob
feel
movie
her. When it
parallels aside,
happens,
the town of Eagle seems right here. Erica is still speaking after all. So how could her First Amendment rights be violated? It turns out it's not that simple.
So there's a legal standard here, and the legal standard is, would the actions of the government chill the speech of a person of ordinary firmness? How would your average person react to being threatened with tens of thousands?
ordinary firmness. I can't wait. I hope Erica accepts the invitation to let me interview her on this show. Average firmness. That's the legal standard, guys. Remember, I told you before that they literally told me, we told you no and you didn't listen, Dana. Because let me tell you, the person with average firmness, right? The average person, this is going to work. Who wants to deal with this? You speak up against something, right? You don't agree with something happening. And so you stand up. And now they're coming at you with $20,000 in fines, like in Erica Brewer's case. That's going to shut a lot of people up. But Erica Brewer doesn't have ordinary firmness. And well, I got to give myself credit because I don't have ordinary firmness either. And I'm not trying to toot my horn, I'm just calling it what it is.
Thousands of dollars in fines. Like, it's, in this case, it seems clear. And the short answer is, Erica is a person of extraordinary firmness. She is incredibly committed to making sure that the town of Eagle is a fair place to live. She's passionate about defending the First Amendment rights of the residents of the town of Eagle. She's passionate about her farm. And a threat of $20,000 in liability, that would have an effect on my decisions. I would have an effect on how I decided to speak or conduct my business, or what I decided to do. And I think most people feel that way. That's a lot of money. And adding to that, just the threat of continued enforcement. And, this has been a process that's been going on for a year now, but the original enforcement process dragged out over months. And there were many visits to Erica and Zach's farm. And just that decision of, listen, we could just shut up and not have to deal with this anymore, or we could continue talking, and, who knows what else is going to happen. There's going to be more visits and more code violations. I just don't think it's debatable that a person of ordinary firmness would be affected by that. So that's incredibly problematic. And that's the first big constitutional violation and issue here. The second big constitutional violation that we've pointed out in our lawsuit is related to the fee structure of the attorneys who work for the town. So a lot of small towns do what Eagle does. This isn't problematic in and of itself, but they are too small to have a attorney that works for the town full time, and they farm that work out to a private law firm. That's what Eagle does. There's a law firm called the Municipal Law Group that handles the prosecution of ordinance violations for the town. This isn't, like I said, necessarily problematic, but the way that it works in Eagle is that the lawyers are paid hourly, and they have a lot of discretion in how to pursue these prosecutions. So as you can imagine, with an hourly rate, this hourly rate is later assessed also against the people who are being targeted for code enforcement. But with an hourly rate, there's an incentive to work more hours. And how do you work more hours? Well, if you can find more violations and you can make the enforcement process drag out longer, not resolve it quickly, you're going to make more money because you've worked more hours.
So we as the citizen are not only paying for our own court representation at that point, or an attorney to represent us, but we then have to pay for the town's attorney who is fighting against us.
The Supreme Court has said in a case called Marshall versus Jericho, this is from 1980, that a scheme injecting personal financial interest into prosecutions could run afoul of the Constitution, would raise constitutional issues under the 14th Amendment's guarantee of due process. And that's what we think is exactly what's happening here. There's a direct link between prosecution and the pocketbooks of the town attorneys, and that's incredibly problematic.
Erica and the Institute for Justice, which, by the way, takes cases pro bono, or free of charge for its clients, teamed up in 2020 to take Eagle to task on all of this. But where does her case stand today?
Currently, we are waiting for the federal judge to make a decision based on the motions that we have submitted, as well as the town of Eagle. And town of Eagle has had some motions where they just are asking the judge to throw everything out because they're 100% in the right. And with the town of Eagle moving this into federal court, I don't think the town of Eagle citizens even realize what that costs.
I plan to start in federal court. Just a plan. I haven't made up my mind completely, but right now I want to start in federal court. We'll see.
Cost is. Who's paying for this? That's very concerning, for one. And then to be frivolous with additional motions being filed and
Yep.
multiple attorneys working on this case.
Yep.
IJ, with our representation, we're not, as a family in this, suing for hundreds of thousands of dollars.
No.
We are suing for $1.
$1.
And I hope that the public understands that this right now isn't.
I started off with only wanting to do $1, but I'm to the point now where this has gone so far that, rightfully so, you have to recoup the losses, right? But I am so happy for Erica Brewer that she was able to stand up to them, the same people that I'm standing up to, and that they were able to solve this, kick it right in the bud in the beginning, and make a difference. I don't know if it's the rest of it. We'll just stop that right there because honestly, if you want to listen to the rest of it, you're more than welcome to. I'm going to put the link. Courtney's going to remind me. But basically, they ended up settling, and we went through that in another podcast, in another episode on Local Wars. They settled, and Erica Brewer didn't have to pay any fines. They negotiated something. They changed some rules. So that's good. There was a positive, outcome. So I did do an open records to the town of Eagle, asking them for all of the statements to Municipal Law and Litigation Group from the beginning of when Erica Brewer started speaking out against the town's actions against the horse farm owner through the end of the case. And they said that it's going to be 15 cents a page and it's in a lockbox or something. And apparently they don't have it digital. I, of course, was like, of course they have it digitally, but I don't know. I had a friend remind me, maybe not, because it's only a town, and some of these towns are still operating in dinosaur ages. But I find that hard to believe. I would think that they would be digital and could just be emailed. We'll find out. Time will tell. Okay, so without further ado, let's get to these fun things. Okay. So you're going to have to make your screen as big as you need to make it in order to see it. So these are the statements from the Municipal Law and Litigation Group. They used to be called Ahrens, Malter, Macy, Riffle, and Larson, SC. So let's start here. October 10th of 14, 609 Scenic Road. So we've got, look at this, each line item. Look, what are some of these things they're doing? Review correspondence with the village administrator, breakthrough conference, village administrator, village planner, special meeting items, research, village board, zoning restrictions. What is there to review, Macy? There's no restrictions. It's well settled case law. But no, you're going to see what they do here. Oh, this is when they sent the letter to the Holtzes when we had an accepted offer to purchase and basically told them we were turning the property into a landfill, which actually, when we told the Holtzes, hey, yep, we want to fill it with clean fill, they actually were excited because that's what their dad was promised, right? The mining company told them that it would be restored properly. And there was these cute little like pine trees all over in the pit because like he tried to restore it himself with some more plants and anyways. Okay, so that's just for that. That's in the beginning stages. See, this is 609. We had some other stuff going on in Bark Lake. Reflections Village had some issues. Scenic Road. Nice. Okay, so that month we were at 10,000 for all of the cases. Mine looks like it's at 9,000, if I'm reading that correctly. I told you guys I'm not very good with stuff like this. Okay. Well, here's some more conferences, public notice. Look at this. This is all just for my case. Village board, solid waste siting law, admitted village regulation. Look at all this, 13,000. What's that one? That's Bark Lake. Down to Scenic again. This is crazy. Look at all of this. Like, what? Okay, so here we've got May of 15. It's going to start getting higher, guys, because we went to court in September. But look at this. Like, what? Look at all of this time. Look at this. Like, when is Jim Healy? Like, why is he always on the phone with Macy? Look at this. Village administrator, village administrator, village administrator, village. Like every time there's a question, Jim is like hyperventilating on the phone. John, what do I do? What is, it's a lot. Like every day, 22, 20, 21, 22, April 24, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. Like what? It's like an obsession. Look at this. I mean, Jim Healy's aware that when every time he picks up the damn phone, this is what happens, right? Oh. Let's keep going. This is just so ridiculous. And I'm doing this for one of our viewers. She wants to see receipts of how much the villagers give me the full number. And you know what? You've given me a homework assignment, and I appreciate you making me step outside of my comfort zone. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to continue to do open records. We're going to start with Richfield and the town of Eagle, and then we're just going to branch from there. And we're just going to do open records, and we're going to find out how much money this law firm is making off of this kind of violation of our civil rights. They're literally policing for profit. How is that okay with anybody? It should not be okay with anybody. And anybody who wants to tell me when I'm out in public or this and that, Dana, all you do is talk about the Scenic Pit. Well, you know what? I've been living it for 10 years, and I've been trying to explain to people what's actually happening. And people don't care because in their minds, they think it doesn't affect them. But let me tell you, it affects each and every single one of us. Oh, and by the way, it doesn't, that's not all I talk about, but when people see me, they usually bring it up and right. It kind of goes together. Hey, it's the crazy pit lady coming into the, get a drink at the American Legion. Oh, how's the pit going? That's usually how it starts. And then I get on a soapbox because, well, that's what you get when you're talking to me about the pit. Because this does affect you guys. This affects each and every single taxpayer in the village of Richfield and in the town of Eagle. I can't speak to other communities yet because I haven't started the research, but something tells me that this is a pattern and a culture. It's a custom of the way these local officials are advising your local boards on how to treat their citizens, which is in violation of our civil rights. We should be angry, we should not tolerate it, and we must have extraordinary firmness, like Erica Brewer. Not normal firmness, guys, extraordinary firmness. This keeps going and going. Look at this. Now we're up to 20,000 in a month. Okay. This is insanity. Look at this. They just, look at this. Look at this. Oh, look at review response by attorney Markovitz. So now the taxpayers are paying for RAD, Richfield Residents Against Dump, for the village attorney to discuss things with the RAD attorney. Oh, and then here's a letter to Attorney Worth. So that's the actual attorney that the village's insurance policy paid for. Because the village filed an insurance claim and the insurance paid for Attorney Worth to represent the municipality. But that wasn't good enough for Richfield. Because remember, we're policing for profit here. And John Macy needs to make his money. So simultaneously, the village is paying out of pocket without an insurance policy covering it. Digest that for a little bit. It's outrageous. And remember, guys, this was all much ado about nothing, right? Because what ended up happening in the end is it was well-settled case law, and none of this even mattered. And if they were attorneys that were worth even the grain of salt that I know they are, they're not stupid. The only conclusion I can be led to, in my opinion, is they're corrupt and they're giving bad advice to make money. And I'm not going to stand for it. And I'll continue to speak out. And I'll give people who this has happened to a platform on my channel to share their stories. And that's going to be so fun because I can't wait for that to happen. That's like, you know, like when I think about this channel and it growing, that's what comes to mind is like the people whose lives we can impact. And maybe, you know, as a country, you know, people get so frustrated because we're so divided. But what we need to do is realize what we all do have in common. And I can't think of one American on either side of the aisle or in the middle or far off, either way, that would be okay with this happening to them. This is the kind of crap that our ancestors left their countries because of. It should never be okay for a bunch of, you know, corrupt people to sit around making this much money off of tax dollars by violating our constitutional rights. I'm outraged. The Karen Reed case pisses me off because she's being accused of murder. But what pisses me off even more is I bet you if people in the town of Canton, who I think are extraordinary people with extraordinary firmness, you guys possess extraordinary firmness. I would love for you guys to start looking into the town attorney and the board members. I listen to as much as I can. Well, we'll get into that in our next episode, but anybody who's listening right now, remind me when we're talking about the Karen Reed case, one of the things that I would love to see happen is Chris Albert, his phone, he's on the town board. He's a town selectman. You guys call it selectmen down there. We call it board members up here. But he's a town selectman. And what that means is that all of his correspondence, anytime he's talked about anything to do with the Karen Reed case, because he's a local official, that comes under color of law. There's got to be a way that Mark Betterow or Melanie Little or Alan Jackson or any of them, there's got to be a way for you to look into that. Look into, maybe you guys already have Chris Albert's phone records, but I bet not. I bet because if he's using his personal phone, just like with Morrissey, if it, that all becomes subject to open records requests. If they haven't rehomed them already. But please, if anybody, if you can correct me if I'm wrong, I'm open to that too. I try to listen and keep myself as updated as possible, but there is so many moving parts in that Karen Reed case. It's really hard to pinpoint what's going on at all times. So let's get back to this. Wow, it just keeps going. So you guys are welcome. Like, I'm just going to go through each page real slow. And you're welcome to pause this, look through it. Eventually, I'm going to link to like a Dropbox or something that people can just access all of these records on their own. But receipts are important, right? Being able to actually see what's going on. This is what's going on behind closed doors. It's insanity. Look at this. Look, even for my records request, $78 to review a records request. The Attorney General's office recommends that the lowest paid staff member fill open records, right? For transparency reasons. It's the sunshine, sunshine laws, open record laws, right? But no, Jim Healy, the highest paid administrator at one time, I think, in all of Wisconsin. I don't know what he is now, but he's not cheap, right? And he makes a lot of money. And so why is he filling the records request to begin with? Oh, and then he's got to go and have them all reviewed by the attorney. Look at this, 119, 78, all for open records requests? Like, is he afraid to? And then that comment he made at one of the board meetings, I've even given more records than our attorney is comfortable with. They're not your records, Jim. They're not John Macy's records. I get it. You have, what's the terminology with your attorney? Privileged information. Well, who's doing the checks and balances on that? Who's doing the checks and balances on whether or not that's actually being shared properly? Some places hire, I forgot what they're called. It's a kind of an attorney that goes through, that isn't, it's like a nonpartisan type person who has no bias in the case, and they'll go through and decipher what's considered protected and what's considered not. That would cost more money, though. I mean, it would be much easier if they just did the right thing, but I think that ship has long sailed. I mean, it's never too late to do the right thing, but we're to the point where there needs to be accountability. And people in Richfield should be outraged. Because I am not the only one that this happens to. There's a family that has been fined over $400,000 in fines and forfeitures for a zoning violation. And the zoning that they're violating violates itself by existing on its face. And if I wasn't clear enough, let me rephrase. M3 zoning permits that the manufacturing of hazardous waste, or manufacturing of explosives and processing of hazardous waste. And this property that they've been fined for violating the zoning is located next to a fire department, next to a park, next to businesses, next to residential area. How in God's green earth can they be fined $400,000 for violating an ordinance or a zoning ordinance when the zoning itself violates itself? Why doesn't the board fine themselves $400,000 for improperly zoning the property in the first place? Which, by the way, they can't even show me meeting minutes for. there's a dumb map with a Sharpie on it where the, oh, well, it happened during, what was it, the 1983 rezoning map, okay. And one day we'll go over the 30-year sewer pack land use map, and you'll see quite clearly, in my opinion, what's actually happening with that property. And it has nothing to do with a zoning violation. It has to do with everything. It has everything to do with that they want a wastewater treatment plant down in that area. Whether or not that's still the plan, I don't know. But for a long time, that's what it was identified for. So what are they going to do? They're going to violate this person's civil rights, constitutional rights to chase her off of her property. It's unacceptable and it's criminal. And I cannot believe that these people still sit on our board and that people in Richfield are just accepting what these people are telling them. And sometimes I hear from people, they're like, well, I don't understand why you think, I know this board member and they're really, really kind. Guys, kind doesn't get the job done. I'm sure they are nice. Okay, let me put it to you this way. Do you believe that when there is a law firm that is making this kind of money off of a party, that they're just going to go to a board meeting and be like, you know what, guys, I'm looking to really pad my pocketbook. So we're going to get involved in this litigation with this company. And it's going to really benefit the community. And, well, it'll really make my firm a lot of money, like in the tune of about $800,000. So I think you guys should just ignore what the well-settled case law is and let me just make all the money I can off of Richfield. It's not how he's presenting it. These guys believe it. The board members believe everything that they're being taught. And even if it's just as simple as, you know what, she might win, but maybe we have more money, so we'll just, outspend. That's fine. Let me tell you a little secret. I've been poor before. I do poor quite well. I've been in a war. I'm not affected by these dreams of a lavish lifestyle. Okay? Helping people is my motivator. Unlike the Village of Richfield's attorneys, money, although we need it to help others, that's not my motivating factor. That's not what motivates me to continue to do this. I don't think anybody would put themselves through all of this just because of money. I do this because I'm passionate about our system of justice, our way of life, our constitutional rights, and the ability to, despite being the underdog, be able to come out, have the same opportunities as any other person, make my life and my children's life better, and in the process, help my fellow neighbor. And I'm not self-righteous. Back in my church days, I might have been. Cults to Consciousness, my favorite shirt. Forgive me what I said when I was in a cult. Forgive me for what I said when I was in a cult. Right? But what really matters is where the heart is, right? And it's time that we, I would rather have somebody sitting on our board who possesses ethics and morals when it comes to how we treat our fellow man. Compassion, empathy, the willingness to do what's right despite what others are doing, the values, the values I was taught in the Army. Leadership, duty, respect, selfless service, honor, integrity, personal courage. And nobody's perfect. I'm not perfect. I screw up. I get angry. But never would I condone anybody being treated the way that the Village of Richfield has been willing to treat its residents and business owners. And for those of you that it works out for, I'm happy for you. But it could happen to you too. All it takes is one disagreement and the tables turn. And I think we proved that today on this episode. So we're at about an hour. That's how long I want to keep these. We're going to do another live stream today about Karen Reed. I'm a little nervous about doing the Karen Reed thing. There's so many podcasters that cover it. But in order to grow this channel, I have to think of the best interest of the big picture. And I want to share the story because what's happening to Karen Reed is it hits home for me. It really does. It hits home for me. And I'm not going to pretend that it's the same level of stress. I haven't been accused of murder. Well, let me take that back. I think twice I was accused of murder. Rumor mill stuff, but no. I have never been charged for murder. Uh-oh. My ring light decided to stop being a ring light again. But yeah, it's got a lot of parallels because corruption has its own identifiers. Corruption has its own way of playing out, right? And I don't think it looks like a lot of people think it looks like. Just like abuse doesn't always look like what people think it looks like. There's a lot of nuances to it. And it's not like everybody's in on it. It only takes one or two to be corrupt. The rest just have to buy the bullshit and spit it back out. So don't be the person that buys the bullshit. Be the person like Erica Brewer, who has extraordinary firmness. So I'm going to get some t-shirts made. And it's going to stay, I don't know, we'll have to come up with some clever stuff. Put your thoughts in the chat. I would love to see what your thoughts are. Like, I possess extraordinary firmness. God, that could go so many different ways. But anyway, thank you for joining me this morning on Local Wars. This has been an excellent experience. I want you to share as much as possible. I want you to tell me the topics you want me to cover. And I want to present material that you love. Okay. So anything local government. I was thinking too, if you guys have your own stories out there, reach out to me. I want you to tell your stories. Maybe we could get into some like offshoots with short videos and stuff like of body cam videos of like neighbors in debates with, government officials, things like that. And they're out there. So we're going to do our best to share them. And yep, you guys have a fantastic day. Remember the crisis line, just in case you need it. It is that time of year when we have lack of sun and vitamin D. Take care of yourselves. Remember your tools. And remember, I love each and every single one of you, whether you believe me or not. Bye, guys.